In our last video, we told the story of a boy in Tibet who had his third eye surgically opened inside a monastery on the Iron Mountain. But that was only the beginning. What happened next took him somewhere far deeper, not into the mind, but into the earth itself. In 1963, a book was published. Its author claimed that beneath the mountains of Tibet, something had been hidden for longer than any civilization in recorded history. Something that, if true, would change everything we believe about our own origins. The book was called The Cave of the Ancients. Its author was Tuesday Lobsang Rampa, the same boy from Chakpori, now a man writing from exile. His critics said he had no education, no expedition records, no scientific credentials. He was dismissed for decades. But 60 years later, archaeology, physics, and forgotten history are beginning to echo, in strange ways, what he described. This is what the Cave of the Ancients revealed. After the third eye operation, Lobsang returned to life inside Chakpori Monastery. His training continued every day. Meditation, memorization, the reading of auras, the discipline of the mind. But his teacher, the Lama Mingyar Dondup, knew something the other monks did not. Lobsang was being prepared for something specific. One evening, as the boy sat alone watching the stars over the Potala Palace, Mingyar came to him. There was something he had to show him, something only 7 men in the entire monastery had ever seen. A cave, hidden deep in the mountains, older than the monastery, older than Tibet itself. Inside this cave, there were objects, machines, things that should not exist. Things left behind by a civilization that came before everything we know. The boy felt a chill that had nothing to do with the night air. His teacher was not joking. The cave had not been found by accident. It had been found through meditation. Decades earlier, a group of senior lamas had entered a deep meditative state together for 7 days and 7 nights. They did not know what they were searching for, only that the ancient texts whispered of something hidden in the mountains. In the silence of that meditation, visions began to come. A specific valley, a specific cliff, images without words, directions without a map. When they emerged, they organized an expedition. 7 men, the most experienced of the monastery. They walked for weeks, climbed peaks no one had recorded climbing before. And when they reached the location they had seen in their minds, the cliff was there, just as it had appeared to them. A cliff that looked like every other cliff. The eldest among them placed his hand on a specific stone, and the mountain opened. An entrance appeared where none had been, silent, ancient. What they found inside changed everything they thought they knew. Mingyar did not take Lobsang to the cave during the day. They left in the middle of the night, when the monastery slept. A long walk across frozen terrain, up paths only the highest lamas knew. For hours they climbed in silence, Mingyar carried a single butter lamp, its small flame the only light against the immense darkness of the Tibetan mountains. Eventually, they reached the same cliff face the 7 lamas had reached decades before. Mingyar pressed the stone. It moved silently. Behind it, an opening. A passage cut into the mountain. The boy hesitated. The air coming from inside was warm, warmer than it should have been. There was no fire, no source, no reason, just heat, rising from somewhere deep in the earth. And together, they stepped into the dark. The passage descended like ancient stairs cut into the living rock, down into the heart of the mountain. For what felt like an hour they walked, step by step, lower and lower. The air grew warmer, the walls smoother, as if shaped by something other than human hands. And then the passage opened. Lobsang stopped. Before him stretched a chamber so vast his lamp could not reach the far walls. But there was light, not from his lamp, from the chamber itself. Spheres of pale light embedded along the walls, glowing without fuel, without flame, without any source he could understand. The walls were covered in inscriptions, not Tibetan, not Sanskrit, not any language he had ever seen. Symbols carved into stone with impossible precision, lit from within by the same cold glow. He looked up. The ceiling rose into a great dome above him, and across that dome, a map of the stars, not painted, glowing. Constellations he did not recognize, connected by lines of faint light, slowly shifting as if the sky itself was alive. And around him, in this impossible light, he began to see what filled the chamber. Sleek vessels resting on the stone floor, smooth as polished metal, but impossibly light. One of them hovered just above the ground, perfectly still, as if gravity had no claim over it. Geometric objects resting on stone pedestals, shapes that folded in on themselves in ways the eye could not follow, covered in symbols that matched the walls. Along one side of the chamber, rows of transparent containers. Inside each one, preserved specimens, plants, seeds, fragments of creatures. An archive of life from a world that no longer existed. Further in, tall capsules of translucent stone standing upright against the wall. Inside each one, a shape, a figure, human or something close to it, perfectly still, perfectly preserved, as if sleeping. And at the far end of the chamber, something stranger still. A row of circular platforms made of black stone, polished like mirrors. Each one inscribed with symbols that pulsed faintly with light. Mingyar walked toward the largest one. He sat down beside it, cross-legged, silent. He did not close his eyes. He did not chant. He simply focused. The ancient lamas called this the meditation with open eyes, a state where the mind extends beyond the body, reaching out to touch what hands cannot. And as Mingyar's awareness met the chamber's memory, the air above the platform began to shimmer, like heat above a fire. But there was no fire. Then, slowly, an image appeared. Not flat, not painted, not projected on any surface. It hung in the air, three-dimensional, real. The image showed the Earth, spinning slowly. But the continents were not in their familiar shapes. This was the Earth as it had been, long ago. Time moved. Lobsang watched land masses drift, oceans rise and fall. He saw creatures he had no words for, vast beasts walking on land that no longer existed. Then, cities. Cities of impossible architecture, towers reaching into the sky, streets glowing with the same cold light as the chamber. A civilization that could communicate without speaking, travel without walking, build machines that defied gravity itself. And then they made a choice. The image showed factions forming, cities turning against each other. A blinding flash of light over one of the great cities, then another, then dozens. The surface of the Earth burning, continents cracking, oceans rising like walls of water and crashing down upon the land. The boy stepped back, his breath caught in his throat. He wanted to look away, but could not. Mingyar placed a hand on his shoulder, said nothing. But the weight of that hand said, "Watch, you need to see this." They had created weapons that split the smallest particles of matter, and they had used those weapons against each other. The hologram showed the planet shifting on its axis, the rotation slowing, for a moment almost stopping, then reversing. 50,000 years ago. Perhaps more. The survivors fled. Some climbed to mountains that had only just risen. Others took to the seas. What they left behind became myth. Atlantis, Lemuria, the day the sun stood still. The hologram continued forward in time. New civilizations rising from scratch. Egypt, Sumer, the Indus Valley, each one borrowing fragments of the lost knowledge without remembering where it came from. Pyramids, astronomy, mathematics appearing fully formed as if remembered rather than discovered. Then the image shifted past the year of Lobsang's birth, into the future. It showed Tibet, soldiers entering it, cities burning, monasteries falling. This was within Lobsang's lifetime. He would see this. A mushroom-shaped cloud rising over the ocean. The same weapons rebuilt, not because anyone wanted it, but because human nature forgets and repeats. A globe surrounded by invisible threads of light connecting every part of the Earth. People speaking across vast distances without wires. Vehicles flying without wings. Lobsang did not understand what he was seeing. That was the lesson of the cave. Not what was, but what would be again. When Lobsang Rampa published The Cave of the Ancients in 1963, the book was dismissed by most as fiction. But over the decades that followed, strange parallels began to appear. In ancient India, the Mahabharata, written thousands of years before Lobsang, describes flying machines called vimanas and weapons of unimaginable destruction. Weapons that, in the words of the text itself, could turn entire armies to ash with a single flash. In Mohenjo-Daro, an ancient city in modern Pakistan, archaeologists found skeletons lying side by side as if killed instantly. Surrounding them, radiation levels higher than expected, and vitrified bricks fused by temperatures that only a nuclear detonation could produce. In Turkey, Göbekli Tepe was uncovered, a complex of stone structures dating back 12,000 years, 7,000 years older than any known civilization should have been able to build. In Bolivia, the stones of Pumapunku show cuts and angles so precise, so geometrically perfect, that modern engineers struggle to explain how they were made with the tools available at the time. And then there are the stories that are harder to confirm. In 2003, an expedition allegedly took place in the Bucegi Mountains of Romania. According to accounts that emerged years later, a sealed chamber was discovered. Inside, witnesses described holographic technology displaying images of human history. The expedition was reportedly classified, the chamber sealed, the truth never officially confirmed. But Lobsang Rampa described a chamber like this in a book published in 1963, 40 years before the Bucegi accounts ever appeared. Coincidence? Or did a man see what we are only now beginning to find? When the hologram faded, the chamber fell silent. Not the silence of an empty room, the silence of something that had just shown you everything and was now waiting to see what you would do with it. Lobsang stood there, breathing. Mingyar did not move. He sat beside the dark platform for a long time before he spoke. He told the boy that this cave had existed for tens of thousands of years, that only 7 men in each generation were permitted to enter it, not because the knowledge was forbidden, but because it was dangerous. Not the cave itself, the knowledge. Every civilization that had reached this level of understanding had eventually destroyed itself. Not from ignorance, from arrogance, from the belief that power could be controlled. The ancients had proven that it could not. That was why the cave was sealed. That was why no written record existed. That was why the entrance looked like every other cliff face in the mountains. The knowledge was preserved, but not shared. Not until humanity was ready. Mingyar looked at the boy and told him something he would carry for the rest of his life. One day, you will write about this. You will tell the world what you saw here, and no one will believe you. But you will write it anyway. Because the cave does not care whether people believe. It only cares that someone remembers. What if everything we believe about our history is wrong? What if the past is not a straight line of progress, but a circle? Civilizations rising, reaching for impossible knowledge, forgetting what came before, believing they are the first, and then destroying themselves again. The Mahabharata, Mohenjo-Daro, Göbekli Tepe, Pumapunku, Bucegi, each one a fragment, a whisper, a piece of a story too large to fit into any single book. Perhaps coincidence. Perhaps deep meditation reveals what waking eyes cannot see. Or perhaps beneath the mountains of Tibet, the chamber still exists. Cold light still glowing on impossible inscriptions. The hologram still waiting. The history of Earth still preserved, waiting for someone ready to remember. If even one fragment is real, then much of what we think we know is incomplete. Make of that what you will. This has been The Void Archives. Subscribe, because the deeper we dig, the stranger it gets.